Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is our special MyLO training series, What to Do Instead of a PDF. I hope we're going to talk about alternatives to using PDFs and why it's important that we start moving away from PDFs, and we are going to give you some practical solutions to what to do instead. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Leslie, and I'm the Communications Manager for the League of Women Voters of California. And I am the project manager, if you will, for the My League Online web platform project that we have here in California. So good morning to all of you and good afternoon to those of us that are joining from a different time zone. All of our attendees are in mute mode now, so I encourage you to please use the chat box for your questions as we go. And then we'll open it up at the end for those that are having any challenges using the chat box, and we will actually allow you to speak to us, which is sometimes easier at the end. And with us today, we have, of course, our amazing MyLO guru and just the brains behind our whole operation here, Rain Michaels, on the call today. And she's going to be leading us through as presenter to some of these great ideas about what to do and why instead of PDFs. We also have our amazing customer service woman, Amaris LeBron, who's also in my office here in Sacramento. So with that, welcome, and I will turn over control of our presentation today to Rain. Go ahead, Rain.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you still hear me well enough?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So just so everyone is aware, I will be playing with the audio a little bit, and because there's a couple of things that I want to demonstrate to you that I can't do strictly through the microphone. So if at any point you can't hear me well, please just let me know so that I can make an adjustment. So thank you for coming online to pay attention to the concept of switching over from PDFs and turning your content into something other than text. The fact that you're here means that you have definitely either heard on your own that it's important to move away from PDFs for various reasons, or you've heard us say this over and over again to the point of it probably being a somewhat annoying mantra for you to hear. And what I want to start out with is just talking about talking a little bit to why we have that mantra. PDFs, and I'm going to actually be talking about both PDFs and images. We used the word PDF, the term PDF, in the title for this because we knew that's where many of you feel the most concerned and uncertain of what to do next. But everything that I'm going to be talking about is equally relevant for both PDFs and images, which are both potentially problematic when not used correctly. And it's a lot easier for me to demonstrate with images than it is with PDFs. So we'll be looking at both. And the reason why we continually have this mantra and what we're really trying to say is move away from presenting important content that will bring new league members in, content that will get your league members engaged. Move away from presenting that in PDF or image form. And there are a number of reasons for that, but the most critical is accessibility. If you present critical content as an image or as a PDF, unless you are doing something fairly advanced with the way that you build these pieces of media, these media assets, you are creating something that a user with low or no vision is completely unable to make use of and access. You are also somewhat blocking out anyone who comes to the system with any kind of mobility impairment, which also includes anyone who might be using a mobile device, a smaller device, because PDFs and images can be much more difficult to see in those smaller devices, especially if they contain critical text. And when it comes to something like the League of Women Voters, thinking about all of those potential users is really important, because you're not only considering the fact that I think that the statistic is something like 40% of people over the age of 65 will have some type of hearing or vision loss. So it's important to consider that that's a fairly large number of people And it's just a natural process. It's not even thinking about someone who might be younger, who has no vision. But also the league is reaching out to a really diverse population that say might be a parent who is holding a baby, and therefore their entire exposure to the content that they might want to reach out to would be through a mobile phone, single-handed, to thinking about people who are using less financially backed technology that might be a little bit older. And so the screen might just not be as high of quality. So in a way, they're ending up in what would be considered a low vision context, even if they're not low vision. So for that reason alone, PDFs and images as a means of providing users with content, with important content, is very problematic. Right along with accessibility, you also have the concerns of search engine optimization and shareability. If the content is locked up in an image or in a PDF, it can't really be parsed by any kind of system. There are OCR capabilities and there are advanced ways to format your PDFs that I will show you some of that can be used to make it SEO compliant, search engine optimization compliant, and shareable. But those are fairly advanced techniques and very time-consuming techniques, and probably far less worth your while than simply providing your content as text in your website. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to demonstrate this. Wish me luck, and here's where I start playing with the audio. But I'm going to, what you are seeing on your screen right now is a post from the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles, which is my local league. And so, you know, I don't do the majority of the actual content entry on here, but since I am the de facto webmaster for the league, any issue that they create is partially my responsibility because I didn't catch it and fix it. So for that reason, I felt like it was good to make use of LWV Los Angeles as the demonstration point. So here we have an event that just passed this Saturday, the Women's March, that was posted on the LWV Los Angeles MyLO site. I'm logged in or I'm not logged in, I'm a completely unauthenticated user right now, so I'm the general public. And what I see here on this page is, you know, the title of the event, the location, the date and time, and then there's a massive image. This is an image with a whole lot of content, including how to get to the march, how to be involved in the march, how to access posters for the march, where the booth is located, all of the truly important information. Most people who might be coming to this site probably already know about the Women's March, and they probably even already know somewhat how to get there, but what they really want is that special league content. So if I were coming here as a non-sighted user, or if I were Google or a library or someone attempting to syndicate and scrape some of this content to get it out to my constituents, what I would do is make use of a screen reader. So I'm going to go ahead and enable one right now. And let me do this. Make this very loud.
Welcome to macOS. VoiceOver is on. System preferences, accessibility window, toolbar.
Okay, so now I'm going to go over to the browser.
Chrome, Women's March 2019 vertical line MyLO, Google Chrome window, Women's March 2019.
Okay, so it's reading the screen to me. Hopefully you guys can hear it. Can you guys hear this?
Shift down arrow.
Maurice, are you able to confirm that you're hearing that you heard the voiceover?
I can hear it, Rain.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tabbing through so that the screen reader can read this content to me. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here.
Reading scroll area, zoom, book.
Okay, I'm just getting out of the main toolbar here.
Visited link, skip to main content.
Okay, so most sites will have a skip to main content option so that the user doesn't have to go through the menu area. So I'm going to go ahead and make use of that.
And visited link, S.
And then skip to main content. And now, oops,
I
didn't.
Heading level 3.
Okay, I messed up because I had this prepared for you and then I was gonna, let me try that again. I want you to hear this, though. This is very important.
Chrome pop-up. Visited. Link. Skip to main content. You are currently on a text element.
I probably shouldn't have done that.
Link. Google Maps. Main. See map.
Okay.
Out of Women's March. In Women's March. Oh.
Okay, this isn't.
Inside of attack. Link. Google Maps.
Let me get back there.
Link.
No, I don't want to be there.
Join the league. You are currently on a link. Reading web content.
Okay, this will work this time, I hope. I just need to.
Visited. Link. Skip to main content.
Okay.
You are currently on a link inside of web content. To click this link, press Control.
There we go.
Space. Press visited link. Skip to main content group. You are currently on a group. To interact with items in this group, press Control Option Shift down arrow. Heading level 1. Women's March 2019.
Here we go.
You are currently on a heading.
So it's reading me the heading. I'm going to go on.
January 19th.
Now it's going to tell me the date. This is great because this is actually HTML content. So it can read to me what it is. It can tell me the location.
Pershing Square, 5327 Los Angeles, C map, link, Google Maps.
I can even get to the Google Map. So all of that is great as an accessibility user. But if I go on to the next piece, which is what I really want.
Women's March 2019 image. You are currently on an image.
Okay. Now what?
No visible title to interact.
Nothing. So hopefully that expressed the point right there. None of that information is available to me in any way, shape, or form. If it had been entered as text on the page, then it would be available to me. Now I'm just going to switch over to something else. Here we go.
Preview, voter underscore 2012.pdf, page 1 of 10, window, document, group has keyboard focus.
Now, this is from 2012, but
press Control Option Shift down arrow.
It's talking. So a lot of leagues will still still use PDFs for their voter newsletter. In fact, this format is still very much the format that's being used. So even though this is a 2012 example, it's just the one that I pulled down. And I know I have some people from Pasadena here, so I apologize that I am sort of calling you out, but I'm actually not, because we are going to talk about archived content and how we don't need to worry about that quite as much. And we're also going to talk about the fact, or we will acknowledge the fact that pretty much every local league has these PDF voter newsletters. But if I'm a non-sighted user or a screen reader or somebody trying to parse this content and get access to it in a more syndicatable manner, this is what my experience will be. Control Option Shift down arrow.
In document group, 3 items, page 1. Page 3. You are currently on a page inside of a group. To edit page 4. In page December 2012. You are currently on a text element inside of a page.
Okay, so I'm getting some of the content.
You are currently on a text element inside of a page. Post-election advocacy.
Here we go. So
currently on a text element inside of a page.
I couldn't get into text content until it finally found what's called a header, a properly formatted header inside of this PDF. And now I can get something, but again, I haven't gotten very much.
Now, if the November election is wrap up 1, although history has shown December to be occasionally too early for the November election to be decided, let's check the results of the League of Women Voters recommendations on the state ballot measures. Of the 5 propositions.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. I think that the point is clear at this point, and I know that that's kind of a challenging way to look at things, but hopefully it's clear to you how little, I mean, I was finally able to get access to the content in here, but you can see how far I had to go before I managed to get the screen reader to pick something up. And it took me quite a while. So there's a lot of content in here that's just not accessible. And so that's really important to keep in mind when you are delivering something as a PDF or as an image. And actually, I won't leave that just in case any of your questions want us to go back to this. But we will look back at this. This, again, was the same problem. The content is being delivered as an image, and so it's completely unavailable to a user if they want to make use of it. So let's talk first about how to deal with this first problem that I brought up. And actually, before we do that, I would like to pause and give you the chance to ask me questions about what you just experienced, if there are any.
No questions yet.
Okay, great. All right, well, feel free to raise your hand if something comes up. because now we're more in the interactive phase here. So this image right here, this is fine as a flyer that you're going to print out and paste up somewhere in, say, a library or a community space or anywhere that you might want to put it. It's also fine for sending in an email. What I do like about this image in that context, and think everything I say right now, if I use the word image or PDF, it's somewhat irrelevant. Everything I say in this particular context is the same. So what I do like about this is that it's very clear. The text is very clear in that it's big, and there's some nice headings that make it easy to kind of scan the content and find what you need. And then there's also some nice icons that help you identify where the information is that you need. These are all great features. These are features that you'll want to put into your PDFs as well when you create those. But when you're putting this content into your web page, what you want to do is you want to make this content text. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab and go into MyLO and go to one of my demo leagues here and open that on up. So I'm going to log in as an admin, and then I'm going to masquerade at the same level that one of you are at as my Rainbow Bright user. And then go ahead and go to demo local. And then I'm going to add this same event. So we'll do this the same way. I'm going to probably skip the image part entirely. Well, I'll use one of our preset images. So I'm administering this league. I'm going to add an event. And then a lot of you have already done this. So I'll just say Women's March 2019. And then we can pull one of our existing images. I'm just gonna choose something really quickly. Okay, I don't know. Well, here's something that looks good. I'll put it on January 19th, so it's already passed. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was much earlier than that. And then we can put in a location in if we want. I'm just going to skip that because right now what I'm demonstrating for you is how to make that, how to kind of get that look that you're interested in without relying on the PDF. So if we look at these two together, our PDF, so we've got some content here. We have this nice image. We'll imagine that that's the image that I put in here, even though it is a slightly different one. Now we have this kind of intro paragraph, and then we have these informational paragraphs. So let me put in the intro paragraph at the top. And then I'm going to put in a couple of headers: where, when, how, who. It can be whatever you want. And then I might put in a little bit of information under each of these. And, you know, I'm not doing this for real, really. I'm not doing it with real content because really I'm just showing you how to get kind of that nice, more flyer-like look without actually having to use a legitimate flyer. So I'm going to highlight this very first paragraph, this one that's kind of your intro statement. And we do have a style for you. When I highlight it, there's a style in here called special. And special is specifically designed for those kind of intro paragraphs, something that you really kind of want to lead in with and catch people's attention. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make each and every one of these header level 2. And the reason why I'm going to do header level 2 is because you always want to think about outline format. And if we go back to that experience that I was showing you with the screen reader, screen readers actually allow the user to tab through just headers or just links or just some other kind of semantic or structural element so that the user can quickly find the information that they need. Imagine if you had to look at absolutely everything on every single web page you ever looked at. in order to get to the one sentence that you needed. So if this person was literally just looking for the location of this one booth, making them read everything would be so time consuming and draining. So instead, making sure that your headers are actually marked up using this header semantic element here will make it possible for them to tab through and get to that piece of content much more quickly. The other thing is that lists are much easier to read. So I'm going to put these elements into, I'm going to highlight them and use a list format so that that can be visible as well. Now then, let's say that I have, this is something really urgent that people need to know. Let's put in another something else. We'll put in another header here just for fun. And then this item, let me put in another paragraph after this for fun, just so that you can see this kind of come to shape. This paragraph is really urgent, right? So we really want to make sure people see that. So under styles, where I pulled that special, I also have a notice style that I can make use of, and that'll wrap it in this yellow. Now then, let's say I also wanted them to be able to download something. Download this flyer. Maybe you want them to actually be able to download the PDF. So you're not giving them the PDF or the image, but you're not making it how they access the content. I have a style right here that I can actually turn that into a button. So I'll click on that and I'll turn it into a button. I would, of course, want to link it, which I'm making the assumption everyone on this call knows how to do because you're all working with your websites. You can add images to get those kind of like where elements, and then I can go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go ahead and publish it. Hopefully I put in everything that was required. Okay, here we go. So here's what this looks like now. It's got that kind of fancy intro. It has some nice headers giving you access to information. That really critical piece of information that had to be made visible is called out in that yellow color. And then there's a nice button here for people to download the flyer if they want to. So this is how you want to be putting this content into your web page, into your website, not using an image or a PDF. The image is purely kind of decorative to some degree, or can augment, it can enhance, but whatever is the essential information that you're providing must be available outside of the image or the PDF. Additionally, if you're providing a PDF as opposed to, if you're providing only a summary on your web page because you don't want to spend, 5 hours putting your entire newsletter into your website as HTML, which I completely get, and I can't imagine any of you are going to want to do that, then you could provide a summary of what's inside of that PDF and tell people approximately which page that content is on, so that if they are going to have to make use of a screen reader or a human being to help them access that information, there's a guide that they can already access that says, if you really want to see this article in this voter newsletter, it's on page 8. Then the user can very quickly access page 8. It's much nicer for them, and it gives them a shortcut. So that's another way. If something like the voter is very unrealistic to take outside of the newsletter form, unless you're going to make use of a mailing list. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but first I kind of wanted to make sure that you were clear on how to present that information in your actual website, as opposed to just on your as opposed to just in an image or a PDF. So before I move on to alternatives to newsletters, how to handle archival content, and a tool that you have to actually help you if you want to make PDFs accessible, then I would like to stop for a moment and see if there are any questions about what we've just talked about.
Rain, this is Elizabeth. There was one question about the screen. Bruce Kendall asked, he said, the screen doesn't seem easy to read. It seems sort of low lighted instead of highlighted. Can you fix this? I did indicate that we're using, best practices for our design on the screen, and that also, individuals can adjust their screen settings themselves. But could you briefly speak to the best practices for what's going on in our screen and the design and the fonts, one. And then the second item, I just wanted to also add that although the images are not necessarily readable by the screen readers, they are an important aspect to being attractive to other users and for our search engine optimization. So I don't want you to think we're discouraging you from using those images, but we would encourage you to use images that we do have in there for you, because we've already added the proper text to make them easy to find via search engine. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then there's one more question to add to your long answer, Rain, and that's from Jody Jordan. And she asked, do you ever try to convert the PDFs to text first, then copy and format?
I love that question. Okay, don't let me forget to answer that. I'm sorry I laughed. You'll know why in a moment. It's the bane of my existence. So yeah, let me start with the concern about the screen. First of all, keep in mind that you're looking through GoToMeeting, which is not inherently awesome for presenting things the correct way. And I'd like you to keep in mind that I've zoomed in dramatically. So this is kind of a false representation of what this looks like, because I'm trying to make sure that it's large enough for you to actually see what's going on. This is not quite, in terms of accessibility considerations, we are using a white background, but we are using slightly not black. It's almost black, but it's not quite black, because stark black and stark white can be a little hard on the eyes. However, we do have pretty much the maximum contrast that is available in terms of color contrast. We've also kept the font size larger, so it's basically the equivalent of a 12-point font size minimum. Which means, of course, that your pages are going to be longer and people are going to have to scroll. But 12-point is the recommended minimum if you are reaching a target audience that might have any kind of vision loss. So, and we're targeting everybody, which means, yes, we are targeting an audience that might have less than, or that some version of vision loss. So we've kept the size at the minimum is 12, basically the equivalent of 12-point font. We also have not turned off any zoom controls, as you can see, because I am currently zoomed in. So we've made sure that all of the user's settings are not ever overridden and will always be indicated here. So if I, as a user, am using a tool that changes the way that things look, that will be respected, which is something that is hard for a designer to come to terms with, but is very important for usability. I also want to speak, and it's better to try to use the styles that we have in place rather than switch to full HTML and try to put your own styling in. Because our styles have been tested, vetted against the various WCAG checkers that has to do with web accessibility. So the other thing is we are, this is not perfect in terms of accessibility, because obviously nothing ever is, and we're continually working to make this better. But every time we do find any kind of accessibility concern, we do immediately put it onto our feature list. So if you encounter one, please let us know right away so that we can address it. What I will say here also regarding Elizabeth's comment about images is I just want to point out that we strongly encourage the use of this kind of image, something that is going to evoke an emotion and augment the information on the screen. We strongly discourage the use of this kind of image, because this is an image being used to present information. So that's a substantial difference, not accessible, very accessible. So that's something to consider also. Now let's go to the pulling something out of a PDF, converting a PDF to text and then pulling it out and pasting it. Yes, you can do that. However, just like Word or Pages or pretty much any other kind of tool, any WYSIWYG, PDFs are actually even worse. And the text that you strip out of there will dump some very unpleasant invisible code into your editor. So then you'll have to clean that out because that'll be kind of a nightmare. So let me show you how to handle that. I'm actually going to go here and pretend like you have another body. So if you're going to paste content in from somewhere else, you'll still want to do the formatting in here. So the best thing for you to do, there's this little button right here at the bottom of your formatted text tool here. And if you click on that disable rich text, you'll see that that toolbar goes away completely. You should paste into here and then re-enable rich text and then go back and add your formatting. You will immediately see some messy stuff that you'll want to delete, but for the most part, it'll be nice and clean, and then you won't have to fight with it. If you attempt to paste that content in here, you will probably end up with some pretty unexpected results, and it might be a fight to get that ugly formatting out of there, which is why I laughed. So it is totally doable, but keep in mind that you should do your formatting in MyLO, not somewhere else, and then attempt to paste that formatting in, because it'll be a time sink and you'll be miserable and you'll start throwing things at your computer. Not from experience, of course. All right, and shall I move on? I know it is 11:30, so we might end up needing to lose some people. And if we do need to lose you, that's okay. We are recording this, but if you can stick around, there's more that I wanted to present here, and I'm certainly happy to answer questions.
And Rain, I'd love for you to show folks some of the alternatives to what to do with your archives of PDFs.
Yes. Okay, so let me show off Pasadena. Yeah, I'm logged in, that's fine. I'm just going to go over to Pasadena here. Okay, so what we did with Pasadena, so a lot of you have experienced the frustration of trying to upload multiple items at one time into MyLO, and you've asked us for some kind of a bulk upload tool, which is very much not impossible for us to provide, but admittedly, we have repeatedly re-asked the question, should we provide it, and repeatedly decided not to. Not just amongst ourselves, but also after talking with a number of you, those of you who've taken time to give us feedback. We've often given you our reasoning, and then you've sort of come to the same conclusion that we've come to, which is if we provide you with the ability to do a bulk upload of files, then there will be instances where well-meaning people will just put in a bunch of files without the proper metadata, the proper data that makes things a little bit more accessible and usable. And then it will start to ultimately diminish the findability and searchability and sort of usability of the system. So for that reason, we have not enabled bulk upload, and we are encouraging leagues to use other systems for their archives, as opposed to trying to hack MyLO into being an archival system for you. MyLO is meant to kind of be a living, breathing web interface with HTML presented that's shareable, not a document archive space. And there are really strong document archive spaces out there. So what I'm currently showing you right now is LWV Pasadena area's Google Drive. We created a Google Drive for them, and then we created a couple of archive folders for them. These folders are publicly readable, but only writable to the LWV Pasadena Gmail account. And they did end up using G Suite, the paid G Suite account, but you actually don't even need a paid account if you're okay with @gmail.com for your URL. You can do this all for free. So we've created these folders that are publicly viewable, and in them, so this is the LWVPA voter archives, and then we've broken it up by year. And if I show you the sharing settings here, let's look at advanced. You can see anyone who has the link to this folder can view it. So those are the sharing settings that we provided here. This can be changed to pretty much anything that you want in terms of privacy. But we've made sure that anybody who actually has the link can get to this content. From there, what we went ahead and did was we uploaded, let me go back to, I think that was, yeah. Let me go back here and I'll just show you one of these folders, which has a bunch of PDFs in it that we named in a way that would hopefully be readable. And then now if we go into the actual voter page here, we used Embed Code to pull that right in here so that people can get to this content directly from here. We did the same thing with, let me go up one or two to the yearbook. So we have these items right here. And if we look in, one of these has multiple, I think it's, one of them had multiple, and I think we actually consolidated them. But that I believe is under our working committees. Voting and elections. I don't remember where we, maybe it's under about. Of course, I don't remember where we hid it. I just remember that it's there. So now you can see another implementation of this. This is just using Embed Code, and it's pulling these files directly from that Google Drive. So if files are added or changed or removed on that Google Drive, it automatically updates here. I don't have to do anything in MyLO. So I can just plop or rename or do whatever I want with these and add files in here. So that's what I would strongly recommend you do. You can do this with Google Drive. You can do it with Dropbox. And again, you just make the folder publicly shareable so the public can read it, but they can't write to it. So then you're making that content accessible. There's also something else that you will want to know about. Actually, it's in here. There's a tool, and I have provided Elizabeth and Amrice with the link to this tool. So if you want it, I can dump it into our GoToMeeting chat right now. Maybe, actually, yep, there we go. So I'm dumping the link in there, or if you don't take it from here, you can go ahead and ask Elizabeth or Amrice for it later. So this is an online tool that you can actually make use of to upload a PDF, and then it will go through the PDF and help you give the PDF markup so that it can be read by and navigated by a screen reader, including allowing you to skip certain sections of the PDF for a screen reader so that it makes it a little bit easier. So this can be a useful tool. It's going to be a time-consuming tool. Another way to do it is to make use of Adobe Acrobat Pro, the paid version of Adobe Acrobat. You can actually mark up your PDFs with accessibility in there. To be very frank, it will take you less time to enter your key content in here than it will to make your entire PDF accessible. But again, voter newsletters aren't necessarily something that you're going to want to take time to make in HTML format. So we get that. So it's kind of a balancing act and making sure that at the very least, you provide a table of contents of that voter newsletter for anything moving forward. And then for archives, doing something like what we did for Pasadena is certainly good enough.
Hey, Ring, can I break in and ask a question from Jan Dye? She wants to know, where do you get the G Drive embed code?
That's an awesome question. I did a search for it, but to be honest, the easiest way for you to get that embed code now is to ask when you're ready for it. Ask me or Elizabeth or Amarice to go steal the embed code that we used on Pasadena, and then you'll just edit. You'll have a little section that you'll need to edit with your path instead of their path. And that'll be the best way for you to get it, because it was actually hard for me to find that embed code. So just steal it from Pasadena. We do have Pasadena folk on this call, so if they want to complain about that, they can certainly raise their hand. But I think if you take theirs, I think they'll be fine with that.
And I also posted a link to the information on how to archive and the options that are available. But we're happy to share that embed code. And we call it sharing, not stealing here in the league. We like
Yes,
to share our good ideas with one another.
You know, I
So
think actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure, talking about sharing as opposed to stealing, I'm pretty sure that I actually put that up on one of the threads on the Google group. I'm pretty sure it's in there. So if you look at the Google group and look for PDF archives, you probably will find it there.
And since we're nearing the end of the time of the call, I want to make sure that I open up questions via voice, verbal questions for the folks that are maybe not able to use the chat box or raise hand question function. So is there anyone on the call that might be able to at least put the question mark in their chat box or their hand raised if they want to ask a question verbally? I don't see any. Wait, let me try one more time here. I don't see any questions, so we're doing great so far. So, Rain, are there other things that we would like to show folks with how they can do additional content, not PDF?
Well, I was about to try to look for that thread on the group, but it's probably not. This isn't probably the best way to do that. What I would like to show you, and I'm not sure. Well, LA is a good one, I think, to show you. One of the areas where leagues do end up using a lot of PDFs is in positions when putting up your formal positions that you have. And so I did want to show you that it's better for you to make use of the position content type that we have. If you go into that, yes, I am logged in, but I'm not logged in as somebody who can manage the LA League. So let me go to my demo local, which I think is Colorado. Okay, that'll work. Okay, so we have a position content type, add position. And I would strongly urge you to add your PDFs, or sorry, to change out your PDFs and use this content type, which also includes a place where you would write up the history of that particular position. And there's a couple reasons for it, but one of it, aside from the accessibility portion, this is easier to update than a PDF, and also it's more shareable. And we do have it set up so that any league can actually tie their content into a position from another league. So let's say the Pasadena area is throwing an event on immigration reform and wants to make use of either the state position or the national position or or a Los Angeles position that has to do in any way with, or housing is an even better example because LA does so much with housing. So if the Pasadena League was putting together an event that in some way would be related to the work that the LA League is doing for housing, then they could tie their event to the LA work on housing, and then that information, there's a small amount of cross-pollination of that information, or at least a link up so that you can find that event from material about housing. You can find the Los Angeles position from that event. So it becomes easier for people to see the league as one kind of large, powerful unit instead of a bunch of segregated little local leagues. And that, everybody's working together. You might have different leagues working on different things, but in the larger scope, everybody is working as a cohesive unit, and that information is shared. So that's another really important reason to try to be using the content in the text area and the styles that we have in there instead of putting in PDFs and images. And also be very careful with embed code. We have made it as easy as we possibly can for you to make use of embed code, But anytime you're using third-party embed code, you could be bringing in some accessibility issues without realizing it. So try to always, if you're thinking about PayPal or something like that, you kind of have to use the embed code, but always be thinking if there's a better way to provide your content. And you're certainly more than welcome to reach out to us, because we can answer those questions as well and say, oh, here's some ideas. And then, of course, don't be afraid of the exceptions when you actually have to use them. But just ask yourself first, do you really have to use that exception?
And Rain, here's a great question. It's sort of a clarification question. How, when back a screen, when you were showing the Google Embed page with the PDFs for newsletters, how is that different than adding just a link to the PDF on the page that opens each document in the G Drive?
Easier is what it is. You don't have to take the time to add the link, and if you change the file or if you add new files, if you're embedding from the Google Drive folder, then any update that you make to that Google Drive folder will automatically show on your page. Whereas if you make changes to if you add a new file into Google Drive and you're just putting your text in as a link on the page, then you have to go back to MyLO and add that link again, or add a bunch of new links or remove some links. Whereas if you're just embedding the Google Drive, the view of the Google Drive folder, then any update that you make in the Google Drive folder automatically appears without you having to do anything. Everybody who's volunteering their time with the league is doing a lot, and many of you don't have a lot of free time. So anything that saves you time is worth considering. Even if it takes a little bit more time to learn up front, it's going to save you time over the long run.
And I just want to reiterate another way that you can easily step away from PDFs is I noticed a lot of leagues are using PDF printouts for their membership renewal. I know that in some ways, some folks can't get away from that, but offering the web form as an embedded form is really administratively a lot easier and time and efficient use of time. And then potentially if there are members in your group that just don't renew online, you can always print them, send them something specifically. But that's just one step easier for folks if you're really trying to reach out to get new members. If they're using a mobile phone, they're not going to be printing out any type of a form, whether it's for an event or for membership. So I'd really like to encourage you, that's one quick and easy way to step away from a PDF on your site, is through your join and donate and your events options. And you can always add that PDF at the bottom if you have to, but really try to keep in mind that using those embeddable web forms are really a best practice. And we're happy to help you with that. And there's lots of documentation and videos to do that if you'd like to look at it on your own, or you can always ask Amaris, Rain, or myself, and we're happy to help you.
Yeah, the form link is right here. If you're looking for it, it's right here. And there are a lot of people on the Google group as well. A lot of local league webmasters who are doing some amazing things with forms on their sites. So if you decide to go that route and you want to connect with your peers, I would strongly urge you to do that, because they've found some solutions that are working really well for them.
Let's see, I have one more question from Bonnie. She asked if we use MailChimp for our voter, is that accessible?
Yes, as long as you're not putting your content in text on an image or in your PDFs that you're attaching to it, then yes. And that is actually something that I was hoping to have time with today, but that could really be its own webinar, is making use of a lot of these third-party mailing list tools that are out there. If you have the budget for it, it's really a great idea to do so. MailChimp is a very good one. It's very easy to use. There's a lot of pre-existing templates that look really nice. And then Constant Contact is another one. If you're using a CRM of any kind, then they'll have one as well. And the nice thing about using those is when you send out the email, when MailChimp or whoever sends out the email, then they're sending it in a rich HTML format that can be parsed by the screen reader. And they're also providing a link to go back to a web page. That web page is an archived space. So you could actually use those links as your links to put into MyLO and say, oh, here's here's our new newsletter, and then you link out to the MailChimp one, and you put that, put a summary into MyLO and then a link to the full newsletter in your summary. And you could use even your article content type. So you post it as a news item, and then it goes into your feed with the full, just with a nice little summary, and then the full link out to MailChimp or Constant Contact or wherever. So that's a great way to do it. And that's obviously moving forward. You're not going to retro. I would not encourage you to retroactively spend the time making 5-10 years worth of voter newsletters accessible. If somebody who needs that content and can't access it for visibility reasons is out there, then they will contact you and you can help them then. But until then, focus on moving forward. Don't waste your time going backwards.
Well, great, Rain. I don't see any other questions at this time. Any other questions? And we're getting towards the top of the hour, so I am going to unmute everyone, which sometimes causes a little bit of chaos. So I was going to wait until we were close to wrapping that up in case we missed any questions live from individuals. So I'm going to do a last call for questions via our chat box, our chat question. You can push the question mark and it will show that you have a question, or you can raise your hand. I don't see any, but I'm going to try to unmute everyone unless you have any last words to add, Rain, before I unmute everyone and let us all talk at once, which could be crazy.
No, I'm sure I could talk forever, but I'm good for now.
Okay, well, I am going to see if I can unmute everyone. Okay, I have unmuted all attendees, it says. Or I have not. Slowly, they are all coming unmuted. Does anyone have any questions they wanted to ask live of us?
This is Bruce Kendall again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yes. Bruce, go ahead.
Okay, this is still a question about the screen looking funny. And I know, I'm not sure if this is just an issue with the webinar thing you're doing like that, but it's diminished in intensity and kind of like a grayish background. I haven't tried to go to the Pasadena site and see if it looks like that also, but what I have seen increasingly is some, I'll call them idiots, who are doing websites where the lettering is kind of grayish instead of, and they seem to think it looks nice, but if you look at the people complaining about it, everybody's complaining about it. It looks crap. I can't read it. I want to see hard black letters, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess.
I think, I think you're getting the effect of going through GoToMeeting. We are using a white, the background on this site is white. It is pure white. Okay. The font color itself is almost black. It's just slightly off black, but it's basically the equivalent of black, just slightly off to ease the intensity on the eye.
Yeah, but you've presumably, since you're one of these web designers, you know what I'm talking about with everybody.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's one of the biggest fights that those of us who do UX work have with designers. It's a big designers. The gray on gray is very trendy right now, so I know exactly what you're talking about. We are not doing that. We are basically as close as you should get to black based on best practices as we can go with a white background.
Well, and that's a great opportunity for me to remind folks on the call that we do have some other coloring and design options, a top menu versus a side menu, and we have some new colors that reflect the changes of our League of Women Voters of the United States website. So make sure you go to lwvc.org/MyLO and you can see some of those designs if you'd like to change your design. So I know Glendale Burbank has done that, and you'll see on here on the demo, those purple buttons you see, you can get those for yourself. So keep in mind, we do have those new design options for folks that are interested. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. You will receive an automatic recording in a day emailed to you directly, and we'll be posting a link to this webinar on our website and in our Google groups so that you can share it with others, or you can revisit some of the options we are offering or suggesting that you take advantage of how to share your content more widely instead of using a PDF. So thank you so much, Rain, for taking us through all of this, and Amaris for helping out today. And we hope to see you all in customer service emails and or our Google group and or on Facebook. So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.